You thought with Dan Mullen rather, with him, moving on from his O-line coach, firing his DC Todd Grantham at Florida, that I thought his job might be safe. You looked at the remainder of his schedule: Missouri, South Carolina, or Florida State rather. Those should be wins. You think that he would be able to accumulate, get above 500, maybe be 7-5, and go redirect and be able to move forward and hopefully recruit better this offseason and buy himself some time. Well, when you lose to Missouri in overtime, 24-23, people are going to be calling for your job. They're going to be calling for your head. And that's exactly what happens. And so fired his coaches. He has the recruiting comment that he makes a couple of weeks ago about I'll start that after the season. That's never a case. Florida's recruiting class this year isn't a great one. Florida, talk about it during the game, anything but dominant against Mizzou. And there's times where you lose games and there's some fluke things and different stuff that happens, but you play well. When you rush the ball for 38 times and you're Florida and you only gain 93 yards, that's a serious problem. Because you should have better players up front than Missouri, and you should be able to pound the football. And they were unable to do that. And that's an indictment on Dan Mullen. He's been there now for a number of years. And believe me, we'll get into all the history of this. Last season, he's playing for an SEC championship. Now they finished 8-4, but they lost to Bama by 6, the eventual national champion. They played him as well as anybody did all year. They were really stinking good. And Kyle Trask, all of a sudden, his ability to evolve, what they got out of him, the last season and a half, really, really good stuff. But they still only finished 8-4. They were embarrassed in the Cotton Bowl. They get smoked by OU, and Dan Mullen can excuse that away and say our guys didn't want to play and all this stuff. The game was televised. It happened. There were scores recorded. People watched, and there were people that were upset, and they can justify it all they want. But fans, alum, nobody wants to ever be embarrassed in that situation. And it's not like they had a record to turn back on. They won the East, they played in the championship, but they were still only 8-4. And so let's take a look here, the history of what this Florida job has been since Urban left in 2010. He obviously had a record, an unparalleled success for, a brief period. Steve Spurrier did it for a long time before him. In between there, you have Ron Zook, was hovering around 7, 8, 9 wins, but nothing really to write home about, but was never really terrible either. And so you look at the situation here. Urban leaves in 2010, and you could argue that it was bad and maybe the recruiting had fallen off and it wasn't a great situation. And he didn't leave the program in the best of shape. All right. So we'll excuse that. But it's been a decade now. It's been a decade. So you're bringing Will Muschamp. He's there 11, 12, 13, 14. He has 11-win season in 2012, but outside of that, never more than 7 wins. Can't really get that thing turned around. So he's got the one brief period of success. They tie for it in the East. They don't even win it. He's there. They get 11 wins once, but no more than 7 outside of that. They even had a 4-8 year in there, I believe. Then 15-17, Jim McElwain. He comes in. He's supposed to be the answer. Crazy yelling all over the sideline. People didn't like his demeanor. He got upset. He got furious, red-faced all the time. A little bit like Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, but he never was able to stack the wins and be able to change. But he wins 10 games, in his first season. Everything's all hunky-dory. Then wins 9 games. Then all of a sudden, winning 4 games after that, and struggling. I believe he didn't even finish the season. He's struggling there. They move on from him, but he does win 10 wins. They'll make 10 wins, but still doesn't win the SEC East or outright. Then you bring in Dan Mullen, and things were supposed to be turning around. He has 10 wins. He's got 11 wins. Still doesn't win the SEC East and isn't in solo control of that thing. And then he does last season, but they still only have 8 wins. And then you followed up this year. They're sitting here at 5-6. They'll probably beat Florida State. But my goodness, that's not what you expect out of Florida football. When I went back to research that, I felt like some of those guys did a better job. And you could argue McElwain, he started off, he was good, 10 wins, 9 wins, not terrible. But then you drop off to 4. And I think a lot of it was his demeanor. But the question becomes how good really is this job? How good is the Florida job? Because for the last decade, there's been some spikes, some periods where it's been good. But you look at Texas, they've kind of been in the same spot. You look at USC, they've kind of been in the same spot. Heck, Michigan has kind of been there. They've ebbed and flowed. They've went up and down. It's hard to do what Nick Saban has done. Dabo Swinney's experienced a little bit now. You saw what Urban did at Ohio State. And now Ryan Day. It is hard to stay on top and get there and then fight off everybody. Once you get to the top, fighting off everybody consistently, keeping your coaches, replacing them when they leave, it's not easy. So a lot of programs have dipped. Now, with all that being said, there's 3 premier jobs open right now in college football. USC came open first, then you had LSU, and then you have Florida now open. And so I believe Florida is the 14th job to open or turn this season. There's going to be a ton more. Heck, we might get to the point where it's close to 15 to 20% of college jobs are open this season, which would be an astronomical number, but we hit 10% and it wasn't even Thanksgiving yet. I think Florida is the best job out of all of them, followed by LSU, then USC. USC has great recruiting base. You've obviously got, a ton of boosters, a lot of stuff there, but you can't fill a stadium. When you can't fill a stadium, it's going to be hard to recruit, and guys aren't going to want to go there. That's not going to be that captivating sense of pride like it was back in the day. And so that's why they've been wandering in the wilderness trying to figure this thing out since Pete Carroll left. With some periods where they've been good. It hasn't like every year's been 4-8, same thing. You get to 9-10 wins a year, but then there's no sustainability because you haven't been able to stack talent on top of talent like some of these teams have done. I think LSU is after that. You've got an immense amount of talent in state. You've had success. Your last 3 coaches have all won national championships. You have unbelievable in-state talent. People want to win. You'll pay whatever. I do believe it's a highly desirable job. I just think that there's a little bit more cachet to Florida. Now, LSU fans, you're going to hate me for that, but that's somebody who is an outsider looking in, that even though they haven't had the success, I feel like Florida is just a smidge better as far as national reputation. When you've got the gator on the helmet, and maybe that's because old ball coach was there for so many years, and I was like a child of the 90s and watching these guys come up, but it just feels like if someone had the pick of their job and they didn't have alliances to either school, they had no preference, there might be just a little bit there that's going to the Florida Gators. So I think that, with that coming open, it's going to throw another wrench in plans, and all these schools are going to be in a bidding war, as we just saw Mel Tucker get $95 million. So good for Mel with all these jobs being open. Jimmy Sexton is working for him. See if James Franklin is still in play anywhere else. I don't know who they're going to fill these jobs with. Luke Fickell's a super, intense and highly thought after coaching prospect, but he's not going to USC. I don't think he's going to LSU. And for those same reasons, I don't think he's going to Florida. And so I don't know, is it a Matt Campbell out of Iowa? Is there a hot assistant that someone's trying to bring in, someone from, smaller programs? But it doesn't seem like there's, a glut of high quality young coaches to fill this. And it's only more and more premier jobs seem to be opening up. I thought this one would have another year, especially after the firings and moves that Dan Mullen made. But obviously that's not going to be the case, is they are now looking for a new coach in Gainesville.